flooring has come a long way from shag rugs and vinyl tiles. The choices are aplenty, no matter your application, from kitchens to bedrooms all the way to classrooms and gymnasiums. Whether the space is a dedicated application or multi-purpose, the proper solution exists. Created to help you avoid poor decisions, this is the FloorDecisions.com podcast.
Greetings and salutations. Welcome once again to another edition of the FloorDecisions.com podcast. I am your host, Eric Lucier, recording this one on Thursday, July 15th, 2021. It is episode number 3. Been thinking long and hard as to how to create a flow and perhaps a consistent train of thought of the process of coming up with proper decisions, really, with your flooring project. And I think the most important factor that is completely overlooked in any flooring project is floor preparation. It's called floor prep. It is the owner's and general contractor's worst enemy at times because it can be an absolute unknown. And for those of you who don't know my background, 15 years in as a sport flooring, athletic flooring subcontractor. I'm mainly dealing on the front end, the sales, the marketing, and the education that goes into proper selection. Floor preparation is, without a doubt, our biggest headache in the industry. And for anyone that believes that there's no such thing as floor prep necessary, they are absolutely, positively, 100% mistaken. Not only is floor prep necessary on every job, it is without a doubt the most important step of the process in regards to a new flooring project. Whether it's flooring demolition, flooring encapsulation, concrete moisture mitigation, self-leveling underlayments, or a combination of them all of that is absolutely, positively vital in your steps in your process, ensuring that the new flooring looks as absolutely beautiful as it can be. So we're going to just quickly overview the different steps along the way and talk about some of the processes and some of the applications that goes into it in ensuring that it looks good no matter whatever floor you put on top. So we're going to start with, of course, flooring demolition, flooring removal. Now, it's important to know that whatever you do in your new floor, that new floor is only as good as the substrate it is placed upon. And your weakest link is only as good as that substrate. So if you've got a failing underlayment, whether it's concrete, whether it's a wood-damaged plywood, that is going to be your first step of failure. So that new floor is going to be bonding to, or loose laying, what have you, to that step along the way. It's important that you deal with any sort of critical underlying factors. So if you have any sort of failing underlayment or failing subfloor, it's important to deal with that first. Remove it, probably not encapsulate it, but look to get down to where the critical failure can be removed. You want to absolutely remove any sort of failing underlayment, failing subfloor, and get down to the base bones, whatever that may be, whether it's joists in a wooden substrate or whether it is the bare concrete of an original installation. You want to get down to that original step of the installation. And that may mean removing a 1/2 inch of failing underlayment. We just had to do that on a gymnasium project in southern Vermont. And whatever you remove, you're going to need to put back with something new, whether it's a new underlayment, wooden underlayment, or self-leveling underlayment. You're going to need to build that back up, create a smooth, flat, and level underlayment. And when you're talking about tolerances, the standard in the industry nowadays is an 1/8 inch in a 10-foot radius. And what that means is within a 10-foot span, that subfloor cannot be out of tolerance greater than an 1/8 of an inch. And that is tighter than your concrete Division 3 specification, which is typically 3/16 of an inch. So your Division 3 and Division 9 in your specifications are usually not in agreement. It's important to know that they should be getting along. That 1/8 inch and 10-foot span is critically important and also completely obtainable, because whether you're putting down a new resilient floor or a wood floor, especially in a large format application like a warehouse or a gymnasium, it is smooth, flat, and level for absolute tolerance importance. So floor removal is an absolute and critical important step in the game. Now, concrete moisture is without a doubt the number one issue that we come across. And in 15 years of me doing this, it is absolutely positively getting worse and not better. Every single owner, contractor, architect is quite aware that it is a huge issue. Flooring manufacturers are starting to adapt to that by coming up with adhesives and installation techniques that can allow to a higher level of concrete relative humidity. At one point in time, we only measured, usually with calcium chloride tests, the amount of concrete moisture that was coming out of the top of the slab, but we've moved to relative humidity in situ testing, which measures 40% depth inside the concrete over the last 10 years, and that gives you a better gauge of what is going on inside the concrete. Now, if you have a new installation, most likely you have an intact vapor barrier underneath that concrete slab. That is an important step in your new installation. And when that is placed before the concrete is poured, it is very important that that vapor barrier is not penetrated in any way with installation techniques, what have you. That new concrete, when it's placed on top, needs to be on a working intact vapor barrier that we suggest to be at least 15 mil, if at all possible. On your older renovation projects where you've removed that wood floor, anything that's 20, 25 years old, if not older, we're basically presuming that there is no intact vapor barrier. And as such, the groundwater is always going to be in contact with the bottom of the concrete slab. And it's important to realize that until you take that groundwater out of play, you are always going to have water moving through that concrete slab and trying to escape out of the top. And when you're placing a non-breathing surface on top of your concrete slab, say a cushioned sheet vinyl product that is heat welded, you're going to be creating a non-breathing surface, and that water vapor is going to try to travel out through the concrete slab and will not be able to escape. So it is going to be breaking down your adhesives. It is going to try to escape out through, and you'll see, and you can see it at times, what looks like a snake essentially underneath your heat welded good, and it is trapped water vapor that has no place to go. It cannot vent out. It has literally broken down the adhesives and has released the floor from the slab and is going to remain in place until it is vented out, or you have seasonal changes that can allow it to escape. And we do see concrete moisture go up and down, fluctuate depending on the seasons, especially here in the Northeast. We're going to be getting 99% air relative humidity in Vermont today. And I know in Southeast, I've had lots of inquiries from, say, Louisiana and Alabama, where the humidity is high all the time. It's important to realize that relative humidity inside the space and with your concrete both come into play when you're looking to select your new flooring finish, the adhesives that come involved, and you'll want to ensure that if there is no working intact vapor barrier from an older installation, whether it was not placed to begin with or it was visqueen, it is not intact now over time, and you're going to want to deal with your concrete moisture appropriately. So concrete moisture mitigation has become part of the norm in the industry, and that is usually a two-part epoxy that is mixed up and applied to the top of the concrete slab, the base concrete slab first, before you do any sort of floor preparation. It goes down at 100% RH capability now in a certain mil thickness, depending on your manufacturer. And there's a plethora of them in the industry. At one point in time, Coaster and Mapei and Ardex were the big names, but nowadays you have Custom Tech and Penetron and Proma and Udzin and Shonox, and there is a plethora of manufacturers with concrete moisture mitigation products out there, and they all make self-leveling underlayment products as well, so they go typically hand in hand. So It is very normal nowadays, especially in a large application where you're putting down a non-breathing surface on top, that a concrete moisture mitigation product may be necessary. You're seeing adhesives that are good to 92, 95, 99, even 100% nowadays. But keep in mind that not all of those systems are tried and true, and they may not cover your flooring manufacturer on top. Or conversely, your flooring manufacturer may not recognize those adhesives unless they make them themselves. So you'll always want to look at your complete system through and through. Is your concrete moisture mitigation agreeable with your underlayment manufacturer's warranty and agreeable with your flooring manufacturer's warranty? You'll always want to make sure that those go hand in hand. So if necessary, a concrete moisture mitigation system goes down first, or perhaps your flooring manufacturer has a slip sheet that is good to, say, 100% relative humidity, and that is a system that they recognize. But you want to deal with your moisture first before you put down any self-leveling underlayment. And when we're talking about patch, that could be anything from just a skim coat of Ardex feather finish up to a full depth of self-leveling underlayment. Typically, those are pumped out or poured out in the field, usually at a depth of 3/8 inch and greater, and we've done up to a 2.5 inch depth system before. When you're removing a wood floor, especially an old wood floor system, those can be anywhere from 2 inches thick to 3.5 inches thick. And if you're not putting back in a system that is that deep, you're dealing with ADA transition issues at the doorways, because typically when those were installed, those concrete slabs have been depressed. They will actually drop down the concrete slab and then you build it up with flooring. So if you're removing a wood floor and you're going to be putting back in a synthetic, you're going to have a depth that needs to be dealt with, either with you got to build it back in either with a wooden underlayment system of some sort or a self-leveling underlayment. And those can be cut usually with clean pea gravel. So you'll go with depths that typically just pour out to a 1/2 inch clean. They can be cut with a pea gravel to bring you a much deeper system. There are many manufacturers on the market that have many different depths pourable in their system, so you'll always want to make sure that it is good to the depth that you are selecting. So if concrete moisture is an issue, you must test. Concrete moisture testing is going to be an episode in itself, but you must test. You must make sure that your underlayment can handle your 96% or 98%, or your flooring on top can handle that. So once you deal with the moisture, you're dealing with your leveling. You're getting that 1/8 inch and 10-foot radius tolerance to the absolute best of your capability, because especially if you're going to be playing a game in your space, like say in a gymnasium with basketball, you want to make sure that when kids are running 84 feet at a time, which is the length of a high school basketball court, that floor is as smooth, flat, and level as absolutely possible. You don't want to have any sort of lips or dips or bellies or hills in your new floor so that the kids can run, play safely. So your self-leveling underlayment is absolutely important to maintain tolerances of that new floor, especially when you're painting game lines in a gymnasium. You may have a new cushion sheet vinyl floor go down and it may look fine, especially with the lack of daylighting, because daylighting plays havoc with resilient flooring and how it can accentuate imperfections. But when you put down your gym floor striping, it can accentuate all of those tolerances that are out of whack. So you'll want to make sure that your 1/8 inch and 10-foot radius is hit. And typically, your good flooring installers have the capability to do this work. And if you want a sole source warranty, you're typically going to employ the same crew to do that work through and through. And if they're not going to be the same contractor, you'll want to make sure that the floor preparation that was performed is accepted before the flooring installation commences with your flooring installer. The last thing you want is a warranty that is not abided by because the flooring manufacturer, flooring installer, doesn't recognize the work that was performed beforehand. So you'll always want to do your due diligence to ensure that warranties are followed if they are from different contractors, but it is certainly best to employ the same contractor to do the work through and through. So I mentioned all of the manufacturers earlier that are doing concrete moisture mitigation. Almost all of them are doing self-leveling underlayments as well, and they're in the game of working together, of course, because they want to ensure that they can warrant that system through and through. If you're going to have an epoxy mitigation system made by manufacturer A and a self-leveling manufacturer B, you'll want to make sure that those warranties are valid through and through, because the last thing you want is to put down a 100% RH concrete moisture mitigation system and a half-inch overpour and then realize that those systems don't work along together and your warranty isn't valid. So that is a quick summary of what floor preparation can look like. It is absolutely, as I stated earlier, as vital, just not even more so vital than your flooring installation. Case in point, and if you're a flooring guy or in contracting, you would recognize this through and through. We have a grocery store here in Champlain Valley of Vermont that was heavily renovated when they rebranded a handful of years ago. And it can be difficult in grocery stores that typically don't close and are open 24 hours a day, so they need to do pieces of the grocery store piecemeal. You know, they're doing a handful of square feet at a night as they move around aisles. But they did a major renovation at this grocery store where they basically pulled out what was, from recollection, 12-inch by 12-inch VCT vinyl composition tile, and then put back in a new LVT, luxury vinyl tile. And they did absolutely no floor preparation in between the two. They basically ripped out the VCT and put in the LVT. And you can absolutely 100% not only see it when you walk in the place, but you can feel it when you're driving your shopping cart across the produce section. It literally rocks and rolls over the humps and bumps in the floor. And it looks like they took the surface of the moon and just put down a new LVT over it. And not only does it not look good by any means, but it'll absolutely compromise the longevity of the new flooring installation because it'll wear differently, especially during usage and maintenance. When you're running your auto scrubber, which is typically what you do in most resilient floors, you run an auto scrubber, whether it's a walk behind or a ride-on Zamboni type of system over these floors, you're going to be hitting your high spots and missing your low spots. So these high spots are going to be wearing much quicker. So I can't even go into this grocery store without my eyes immediately looking down at the lack of floor prep that was put into this installation. And if I was the flooring contractor that did this work, I would be absolutely embarrassed and would refuse to walk in the space. And if you have an owner or a contractor or someone that says, you've bought the floor prep, it was in the spec, you knew what was there, or you knew what was called for, and it was A, not called for, B, you did no site visit, C, it was turned over by somebody else that turned over conditions that weren't acceptable, stand your ground. The second you start installing on an inappropriate concrete slab, you have bought that slab and you're going to be responsible for your flooring installation and what you laid upon. So if there is an existing floor and they say, hey, floor removal is included, that's fine. You can bid the floor removal, but you cannot bid proper floor preparation because you have no idea what's going on underneath. Case in point, Southern Vermont job where we just had to remove the half-inch. This was just an existing glued-in-place gymnasium floor. It was supposed to just remove with the adhesive. They had some moisture problems. It was failing. You have no idea that when you start removing the slab, that literally half-inch chunks of failing underlayment are going to be coming up with the gymnasium floor. So all of that failing underlayment must come out, and how in the world are you supposed to know until you get involved in the nitty-gritty of the flooring demolition and flooring removal? So you must be aware of the conditions that can exist, whether you're the owner, whether you're the architect, whether you're the contractor or the flooring contractor. Be aware of the circumstances that can exist in a renovation project. You never know what you're going to see. And there is no tried and true dollar figure that you need to think about. We did a 25,000 square foot student rec center in New Jersey 5 years ago, where in that work we did about $7,000 of floor prep. And then we did a 1,300 square foot multi-purpose space in a new daycare facility in northern New Jersey 2 years ago. And we did $13,000 of floor prep. So the owner rep was quite upset at us that we did not make him aware that he would need that sort of work, but we needed to tell him that on his new concrete pour, which is what he had, how are we supposed to be ready for the fact that there were literally footprints and leaf marks in the pour because it was not done properly? In a new concrete pour, there's no reason why $13,000 of floor prep is going to be necessary in a 1,300 square foot space. So there is no tried and true figure you need to be aware of. But it's important to know that there will be some work involved. And if you're an architect, you're an owner, you always should put some money aside, because the last thing anybody wants is that 11th hour change order. So whether it's an allowance to carry for everybody or a per square foot number that you call for in the bid for everybody to carry, put a little bit of numbers aside to make sure that there is a little bit of preparation money allocated for that time of the installation. Because especially on new installations, where especially in a gymnasium or a hospital or new school, you're going to be pouring your slab, breaking ground in 1 year and finishing the next year or 2 years later, and all sorts of issues take part over those years, including other trades and what they do inside the spaces as well. So it takes quite a while for the new floor to be installed, and it is important when it comes to concrete moisture and conditions that that space is enclosed fully. Windows, doors, airtight, and the HVAC is turned on, and you start acclimating that space for unused conditions as soon as possible. It's going to start drying your concrete slab, even though it never fully dries, but it is going to allow any curling that will take part at your saw cuts on your new slab to curl so that they can be dealt with accordingly, because it's going to start pulling moisture out of the top of that slab, and that is when you're going to start seeing curls and what have you on your saw cuts. So floor preparation, concrete moisture mitigation, and self-leveling underlayments, skim coating, absolutely 100% the most important part of the application of a new floor, whether it's a soft good, whether it is a sheet good, whether it is a hard good. It is absolutely 100% vital. So any questions, please feel free to shoot me a question at floordecisions@gmail.com. I'd be glad to help out. And if I can't get the answer, I will put you in touch with somebody who can. My name is Eric Lucier. It's floordecisions.com podcast, episode number 3, recorded on July 15th, 2021. I hope you enjoyed episode number 3 on floor prep. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you for listening to the floordecisions.com podcast. If you have a moment, you can leave a review for us on your podcast player of choice, and if you received value from the show, please feel free to share our website, podcast, or videos to anyone that might find it helpful. Created to help you avoid poor decisions, this is the floordecisions.com podcast.